They say history began along the banks of the Nile, that civilization's first breath rose with the pyramids gleaming under the Egyptian sun. But what if that was not the beginning? What if buried beneath the sands of time lies a story so ancient, so forgotten, that even Egypt itself was merely its echo? Before the pharaohs carved their names into stone, before hieroglyphs danced across temple walls, there was another people, another empire, vast, radiant, and now almost completely erased from memory. This is the story of the world before the known world, of a civilization that built before builders, dreamed before dreamers, and vanished before history learned to remember. The story begins not in Egypt, but deep in the shadow of prehistory, in a land now swallowed by shifting deserts and rising seas. The winds that whisper across the Sahara carry more than sand. They carry fragments of memory. The outlines of walls once tall as giants, the ghosts of roads leading to nowhere, the bones of cities turned to dust. Archaeologists have long stared at those eroded rocks and wondered, who lived here before Egypt, before Sumer, before the names we know? In the heart of this mystery stands one site, Göbekli Tepe, in the cradle of Anatolia, 12,000 years old, older than any temple, older even than the wheel or the written word. Stones arranged in perfect circles, carved with the grace of artisans who understood the sky. But this is not just about Turkey. Göbekli Tepe is a fingerprint, a surviving page from a book mostly burned. Across the Mediterranean and the Middle East, fragments of that same hand appear. Megaliths in Nabta, deep in the Egyptian desert, aligning perfectly with the stars. Drowned ruins off the coast of India and Japan. A vanished network of cultures that somehow shared geometry, myth, and meaning long before the pyramids rose. Who taught them? Who guided such precision in an age supposedly ignorant and primitive? To walk into this mystery is to walk backward through time, to a moment when humanity stood at the threshold between chaos and civilization, when memory and myth were still the same thing. And so we begin there, in the dim light of a forgotten dawn. Imagine the world in 10,000 BCE. The Ice Age is dying. Seas rise, reshaping continents. Great herds of mammoth and bison vanish, leaving hunters to face hunger and uncertainty. But somewhere, in fertile valleys between rivers and mountains, small bands of humans begin to do something no one had done before. They build not shelters but sanctuaries. Stone by stone, they carve their beliefs into the earth. They are no longer running from nature, they are trying to understand it. And this is where the forgotten empire is born, not with war or kings, but with faith. Göbekli Tepe stands as their cathedral, its pillars carved with foxes, vultures, and lions. Its circles align to the heavens, marking solstices and celestial cycles. There are no houses nearby, no villages, only temples. It is as if an invisible hand gathered people from across the world to one holy place, a pilgrimage before civilization, a message left for descendants they would never meet. But then, as suddenly as it rose, it was buried, deliberately, carefully, under tons of earth. Why? No one knows. Perhaps to protect it, perhaps to hide it, perhaps because the world was ending again, and they knew their time was over. Thousands of years later, when the Egyptians began to build, they looked back, not forward, for inspiration. The oldest myths of Egypt, the stories of Zep-Tepi, the first time, speak of divine builders who raised monuments before the first dynasty, before history began. These followers of Horus were said to have come from a far land that sank beneath the waves, a land many now compare to Atlantis. Plato's tale of Atlantis, written millennia later, echoes the same pattern. A powerful, wise civilization destroyed. In a single day and night of catastrophe. Could these myths be memories of the same event, the same fall of a prehistoric empire? Evidence from geology tells us that around 10,800 BCE, a sudden global disaster struck. The Younger Dryas, a mini ice age, hit the planet with brutal force. Comets or fragments from space may have collided with the Earth, setting forests ablaze, melting glaciers, and drowning coastal settlements beneath the floodwaters that rose for centuries. The Great Flood appears in nearly every ancient tradition, from the Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh to the biblical story of Noah, to the Sumerian Ziusudra, to the Hindu Manu who survived the deluge in a boat. Too many cultures, Too many similar tales, separated by oceans and time. Coincidence or shared memory of a real event? And if so, what did that flood wash away? What vanished beneath the waves of the world's rebirth? Imagine for a moment the coastline of that ancient Earth, wider, richer, dotted with settlements now lost beneath the sea. Off the coast of India, near Dvarka, divers have found roads, walls, and steps leading nowhere, structures dating back to at least 9000 BCE. In the Gulf of Cambay, sonar reveals patterns resembling city grids, stretching miles across the seabed. Mainstream historians hesitate, unwilling to rewrite the Book of Origins. But the stones do not lie. If humanity could build temples 12,000 years ago, if it could organize labor, track the stars, and carve myth into stone, then perhaps civilization's roots are deeper, older, and far more complex than we ever imagined. The Forgotten Empire, whatever name it once bore, was not a single kingdom. It was a network, a golden thread weaving through continents. It was the spark of intelligence that flickered long before recorded time, connecting hunter-gatherers to the stars. In the heart of Africa, evidence emerges of ancient astronomical observatories at Nabta Playa, predating Stonehenge by thousands of years. Stones arranged in patterns that trace the belt of Orion, the same constellation later mirrored by Egypt's Great Pyramids. This continuity, this cosmic obsession, speaks of an inheritance passed through the ages. Knowledge of the heavens, encoded in architecture, preserved in myth. And where did that knowledge come from? Who first taught humans to read the sky like a book? Legends across cultures speak of bringers of light, civilizers descending from mountains or the sea. In Mesopotamia, they were the Apkallu. In Mesoamerica, Quetzalcoatl. In Egypt, Thoth. In Sumer, Enki. Different names, same idea. Teachers of wisdom who appeared after the flood, restoring order from chaos. Were they gods, or the last survivors of that forgotten world, refugees from the empire before Egypt, carrying fragments of its science and spirit? Each left behind temples, calendars, and symbols. Spirals, suns, serpents, all pointing back to the same origin. As centuries passed, their memory blurred into divinity, and myth became the only language left to describe them. Yet traces remain, buried in numbers and stones. The Great Pyramid of Giza, supposedly built around 2500 BCE, encodes astronomical constants and the dimensions of the Earth with impossible precision. How could ancient builders know the length of a solar year or the curvature of the planet without telescopes or satellites? The same ratios appear at Stonehenge, Teotihuacan, and Tiwanaku, sites separated by oceans but united by mathematics. Coincidence? Or inheritance from a shared parent civilization now lost? Modern archaeology hesitates, trapped between skepticism and awe. But beneath hesitation lies wonder and the unspoken question. What if humanity's first great leap happened long before Egypt, before writing, before history even began to count? To find the forgotten empire, we must unlearn what we think we know. We must return to the time when the earth itself was the teacher and the sky the book of law. In that ancient age, the line between science and magic did not exist. Every sunrise was divine, every star a messenger, every flood a rebirth. The people of the Forgotten Empire understood this balance. They lived with nature, not against it. They built not to dominate the world, but to mirror it. Their temples were maps of the cosmos, their rituals echoes of planetary motion. They saw the earth as alive, breathing, conscious. And perhaps that is why, when the end came, they chose not to fight but to hide, to seal their wisdom in stone, bury their sanctuaries, and leave behind symbols for future civilizations to find. Thousands of years later, Egypt would rise, inheriting the fragments of that legacy. Its gods bore echoes of the old pantheon. Its calendar mirrored the ancient stars. Its architecture resurrected the same geometry. The priests of Heliopolis, keepers of Egypt's oldest traditions, spoke of a time when gods ruled on earth, when the Nile flowed through a land of perfection before chaos consumed it. They called it Zep Tepi, the first time. Could Zep Tepi be the memory of that forgotten empire? The parallels are haunting. The pyramid texts speak of knowledge descending from the sky, of a sacred order restored after destruction. The Egyptians never claimed to have invented civilization. They said they inherited it. Every dynasty looked backward, to the first time, as if longing for a golden age that once was. Even Plato, writing in Greece thousands of years later, recounts a story told to Solon by Egyptian priests of a great civilization that existed 9,000 years before his time, destroyed by water and fire. "You Greeks are but children," the priest said. "You have no old beliefs handed down by ancient tradition." Those words still echo. If Egypt remembered an older world, who did that world remember? Perhaps the answer lies not in the monuments that survived, but in those that did not. Across the globe, from the jungles of South America to the deserts of Arabia, ruins whisper the same story. Sudden beginnings, unexplained skills, forgotten ends. Civilizations that appear fully formed, as if awakening from a dream already half remembered. Could these be the children of that empire, each carrying a spark of the mother flame? If so, then our history is not a straight line but a circle repeating creation and collapse, memory and loss. Humanity may have risen more than once. The empire before Egypt might have been the first, or merely one in a chain stretching back beyond imagination. Its ruins now lie beneath our feet, beneath our myths, beneath the comfortable story we tell ourselves about where we come from. To uncover it is to face a truth both humbling and magnificent. That we are not the pinnacle of civilization, but its heirs. That the first chapter of humanity's story is still missing, buried not only under sand and sea, but within our own forgotten memory. In the deep silence of forgotten time, the empire before Egypt rose like a sunrise no one saw coming. It began not as a kingdom of conquest, but as a communion of minds, tribes scattered across valleys and coasts, united by the same sky and the same question. Who are we beneath the stars? The first builders looked upward, their lives small against the vastness of the cosmos, yet their hearts filled with a desire to make that immensity tangible. They raised pillars not merely to worship gods, but to understand creation itself. Imagine their world, lush, fertile, alive with mystery. The deserts we know today were then green plains where rivers flowed like veins across the earth. Herds roamed freely, forests whispered with life. In that age, the Sahara bloomed. Rain fell where now there is only sand, and in those rains, life multiplied. Archaeological remains in what is now Niger and Chad tell of lakes the size of small seas, of settlements ringing their shores, of pottery painted with spirals and celestial signs. These people, older than Egypt, mapped the heavens in clay and stone. They tracked the movements of Sirius, Orion, and the Pleiades, connecting their cycles to the seasons of flood and harvest. Knowledge became sacred, and from knowledge grew ritual, and from ritual, civilization. The forgotten empire flourished quietly, its heart beating not with the drums of war, but with the rhythm of stars. Yet even peace gives birth to hierarchy. Among them rose sages, astronomer priests who read the sky like scripture. To them, the cosmos was a mirror of the soul, and to master it was to speak the language of the gods. They built sanctuaries where energy converged, places of alignment where earth and sky kissed. Göbekli Tepe was one such site, Nabta Playa another. But deeper in Africa, along the now-buried river channels of the Green Sahara, there were cities, entire complexes whose traces lie beneath dunes too vast to excavate. Satellite images reveal patterns that do not occur naturally. Geometric grids, ancient riverbeds with rectangular formations. The sands hide more than bones. They hide blueprints of forgotten genius. Some archaeologists whisper of them privately, unable to publish what challenges the dogma of progress. How could people before writing possess the mathematics of astronomy, the architecture of alignment? Yet the stones speak clearly, even when the scholars remain silent. Their builders knew something fundamental, something we've lost, that the earth itself is a temple, and every stone, when placed with intent, resonates with creation. The empires people built with harmony, not dominance. Their cities faced the stars, their homes aligned with solstices. Their rituals honored balance, not power. But as centuries passed, abundance bred ambition. Knowledge became privilege. Those who understood the stars began to rule those who tilled the soil. The priesthood that once sought wisdom began to seek control, claiming divine authority as their inheritance. The temples that had been laboratories of learning turned into fortresses of faith. The first corruption of civilization had begun. Across their vast lands, whispers of division spread. Some saw the change as betrayal, that humanity was turning away from unity with nature toward domination. Others embraced it, believing control was destiny. Thus, the empire fractured into two philosophies, one of harmony, one of mastery. And as the skies changed, so did the earth. The climate began to shift. The rains withdrew. The once green plains hardened. Famine followed. Those who had ruled by stars could not stop the sun from burning too bright. Rivers dried, lakes shrank, and the people turned on each other in desperation. Ancient records, or what little remains, speak of migrations in every direction. Some fled north toward the Nile, others east into Mesopotamia, some west across the seas. Everywhere they went, they carried their stories, their symbols, their gods. It was from these exiles that the seeds of later civilizations were planted. Egypt was one of them, Sumer another, yet none ever equaled the harmony of their mother culture. Legends of gods descending from heaven, of sacred knowledge granted to man, were not metaphors but memories of teachers, survivors of that first fall. But what exactly caused the fall? Some say it was war, a conflict between the priests of light and the lords of mastery. Others speak of a celestial event, a returning comet or asteroid that struck the Earth, tilting its axis, shattering its balance. Geological strata from around 10,800 BCE show layers of platinum and iridium, markers of impact. In that same age, thousands of animal species vanished. The empire's great cities, built near coasts and rivers, would have been the first to drown. The flood myths are not exaggerations. They are trauma encoded in story. Imagine standing upon your temple's roof. As the horizon itself moves, as waves taller than mountains devour your world. The sky burns, the earth shakes, and centuries of peace are swallowed in a single day. The survivors, scattered and scarred, carry the weight of memory heavier than any stone. They remember the music of their temples, the geometry of creation, and the loss of everything they loved. They tell their children stories to keep the past alive, but generations pass, and memory fades into myth. By the time they reach the Nile Valley, the survivors are no longer builders of empires but wanderers haunted by fragments. They draw the patterns they remember on cave walls and sand, trying to recapture the harmony of their ancestors. Slowly, the Nile becomes their refuge. The flood that once destroyed now nourishes. They begin anew. Villages rise, then towns, then kingdoms. The memory of the old world becomes religion. The gods of Egypt are born not from fantasy, but remembrance. Osiris, the dying and rising god, is the echo of the empire's fall and rebirth. Isis, the mother, carries the wisdom of the stars. Thoth, the scribe, preserves the old science. Each god is a fragment of what once was whole. As Egypt's dynasties take shape, the priests of Heliopolis keep alive the legend of the first time. In secret chambers, they guard scrolls older than their own civilization, written in languages none could fully translate. The walls of their temples speak of cycles, of ages that come and go, each ending in fire or flood. This is not myth, it is memory. And among those priests, whispers persist of the ones who came before, the shining ones who taught mankind the art of stone and the laws of the heavens. In time, they would be deified, but their legacy endures in geometry, astronomy, and art. Modern excavations, too, find hints of inheritance. The earliest Egyptian settlements appear suddenly, fully developed, as if civilization arrived, not evolved. There are no primitive prototypes, no gradual rise from ignorance, only immediate sophistication. The first hieroglyphs are complete systems, not experiments. The first architecture displays precision beyond its means. Something or someone jump-started Egypt. Could it have been the remnants of that forgotten empire, refugees carrying fragments of lost genius? Some researchers think so. Off Egypt's coast, near Alexandria and the Nile Delta, lie ruins beneath the waves. cities that predate recorded dynasties. The sea holds its secrets well, but technology is catching up. Sonar scans show walls, avenues, and sphinx-like shapes covered in coral. And further west, in the Sahara's heart, radar imaging reveals rectangular depressions aligned to the cardinal directions, like the ghost prints of ancient cities. Could these be the empire's final footprints? Yet archaeology, as ever, walks a careful line between discovery and denial. To admit a civilization before Egypt is to rewrite history, to concede that our timeline is far from complete. But truth, like the sun, cannot be hidden forever. As scientists peer deeper into DNA, they find evidence of genetic links between distant ancient peoples, connections unexplained by conventional migration models. Bloodlines trace paths older than the Nile, older even than Sumer. It's as if an entire chapter of human ancestry vanished and left only echoes in our veins. Perhaps we are all children of that forgotten dawn. The empire's wisdom, though buried, calls to us through symbols scattered across cultures. The spiral of the Celts, the mandala of India, the labyrinth of Crete, all speak of the same philosophy: unity, cycles, eternity. And yet, humanity forgot the lesson. The empire's fall was not only physical but spiritual. They had reached great heights, but their pride, their certainty in their own godhood, became their undoing. When nature turned, they were unprepared, having placed faith in mastery over harmony. That arrogance has echoed ever since, in every civilization that rose and fell after. From Babylon to Rome, from Maya to modern times, we repeat the same cycle. Rise, reach, forget, fall. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of the forgotten empire, that no matter how advanced we become, to defy the balance of nature is to invite oblivion. Still, even in ruin, they left us a gift: curiosity. Every shard of pottery, every buried temple, every myth of a flood or a shining teacher is a breadcrumb leading us back to who we were. The archaeologists who kneel in the sand today are not discovering something new. They are remembering something old. When we uncover Göbekli Tepe, or the ruins beneath the sea, we are touching the edges of our own forgotten soul. For history is not merely what happened, it is what remains within us. The builders of that lost empire may have perished, but their dream lives on every time we look to the stars and wonder. They built in stone what we now build in pixels and code. They aligned their monuments to the heavens. We launch satellites in the same direction. Perhaps the difference between us and them is not progress but perspective. They knew they were part of something eternal. We have forgotten, yet their story endures, whispering from beneath deserts and oceans, urging us to remember that before Egypt, before kings and borders and gods, there was a single people who understood that the earth and the sky are one. Theirs was not an empire of conquest, but of connection. And until we rediscover that truth, we will keep searching their ruins, hoping to find ourselves among the stones.